Member Lear, Member Bollinger, Member Longacre, Member Hall. Okay, 100% attendance. Great start. Let's dive right in. And will Deputy Newey be doing 3.2?
She's online, yeah.
Okay. So this is a 2027 Legislative Policy Request Information Only item, 3.2. Deputy Newey, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I am.
Okay, time is yours.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
Okay,
so this is getting us ready for the, I know you cannot believe it, the 2027 legislative session. So next year, one of the things that we do as an agency is take ideas from our staff, from the public, from our board members about things that should be changed in law. Our finance committee is dealing with proposals for things that should be funded, but this committee is tasked with hearing through proposals for changes to law. So this is the form that we are currently looking at using for preparing for this process. We wanted to make this available to the public and to you as board members so that you can see the kinds of questions that we will be asking about potential changes that we would then take to the legislature to request. I have two requests for board members today. One is to review this form first with the eyes of, is there anything on this form that is missing? Anything that we could do to make this process clearer or more helpful for you when you go to advocate in front of the legislature? Are the kinds of things that you're often asked by legislators in here with it to give you the data that you need. So that's my first ask. My second ask is that if you as board members, while you're out meeting with your constituents in your schools, be thinking of things that could be potential policy changes next year. We often have things in law that are just outdated or make things harder for LEAs and teachers to do their jobs. So if, as you're meeting with people, be thinking about these things. If you would like to make a policy request, please reach out to a member of the policy team. So you can reach out to myself or Jen or Greg to get a copy of this form, and we can help fill this out and get this ready for prime time. So I believe that the plan right now is that this committee will look at policy requests before they go to the full board for approval to be added to the board's priority list. And then later in October, if you recall, then the board gets together of all of the things that they were given, what are their priorities, what is the priority of the board overall. So that will come in October. So are there any questions?
Well, I agree with your opening statement that, wow, it is kind of early for the 2027 legislative session, but I really am grateful. I looked at the form, and I really appreciate leadership, Matt, Amanda, and Leanne, Chair Hymas, Chair Bollinger, and Chair Wood, Vice Chair Wood, and Bollinger. I think this does reinforce that notion of the importance of the committees, that structure, and allow some uniformity to the process or to the system. So I'm grateful for that. So thank you. And Member Lear, Member Bollinger, Member Lear.
Elise, you just suggested that you wanted comments, and it sounded like eventually, but I read it with an eye toward maybe discussing it today. Which is better?
Either way is fine. I can take your feedback now, or if you want some time to think about it. I know it was added rather late to the agenda, so I didn't want board members to feel like now is the only time to give feedback.
I'm happy to add a few things. Nothing very, I wouldn't say they're not of substance, but they're also not complicated. So if I can just give you some ideas, is that okay, Chair Carey?
That's great.
On page 2, and maybe when you put this back in, would you put it in with page numbers? So just makes it a little easier to refer to. On page 2, you've got the consequences of inaction, but you don't have consequences of action. And I thought that would be important to know. How's this going to change things? So that was one suggestion I had. And you can take these, do what you will, compare them to other suggestions. So I'm not expecting you to necessarily say, oh, brilliant idea or horrible idea, Carol. So anyway, that was one. Page 4, on going a little bit farther, when it talks about USBE FTEs, I thought that was page 4. Yes. In addition to asking what FTEs would be perhaps needed or requested or whatever, I think that maybe a discussion of kind of what the legislature has asked us to do about funding. How could FTEs be repurposed? If you want new FTEs for this program, are you going to take them from teaching and learning? Are you going to get rid of a superintendent? You know, what are your thoughts? That's just a random, no, not intentional by any means. So anyway, that was another suggestion. And then explain the zero need for FTEs, because I think it's always going to be hard to convince either the board or the legislature that we know we need new FTEs, but that's been a losing battle for years. And I think the last thing, toward the end, I would like to know when a legislative request comes to either the committee or the board, who has this person talked to? Is this just, Chair Carey's random idea for a good change, or is this, have you talked to other stakeholders? How many support you? How many have concerns? Because I would like to have that be sort of a kind of a front-loaded idea where this is something that's not just my random idea, but something that is necessary in the minds of other education stakeholders. And I mean that as broadly as you can imagine. If it's parents or if it's anyone who you would consider education stakeholders. So I just had those thoughts, and I appreciate more time to look at it. Thanks.
Great idea.
Thank you, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. Deputy Superintendent Newey, just a few questions. And actually, before I get to that, I'm wondering, Member Lear, when you talk about the consequences of action, I wonder if that's the same as projected results.
Maybe.
Okay. I just wasn't sure
yeah.
if I was trying to fill it out and had to do projected results and consequences of action, I'd be like, well, they're kind of the same.
Yeah.
So just something to.
Maybe just call them the same. Too.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, but at least a couple of things. So this form, is the purpose of this form not just, this is for board members to fill out and staff members to fill out?
Typically, we've had staff do the majority of filling it out. Occasionally, yes, board members will come to us and say, I have this idea, and then staff in conjunction with board members will fill it out. That's usually how it's been done, but if you have other ideas, we're open to
No,
them.
that's helpful, because I'm just thinking as board members, if they're like, I can already see people being like, well, do we have to get 3 people together to then help fill this out and make a request? So what I think I'm hearing you say is if somebody has an idea, they would find a staff member to talk to, and then
Yeah.
collaborate with the staff member to go through that.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're really more giving feedback of making sure it has all the information we would need as a committee to then make a decision on whether we want to support it to pass it on to the full board.
Correct.
Okay, then one other question, if I may, Chair. If there was a request that was both a funding and policy change request, like I'm thinking special ed FTE, would that, yeah, I know, everybody's surprised. Would that come through, if it's something that has to go through, or is both, would that come through the policy first and then to the funding? Or is there maybe think about that process, and maybe you don't have an answer to that, that's okay. Just think about what that would do, because it also, when we think about timing of it, if it's, like, I know we're starting early, and I really do appreciate that. And I agree with Chair Carey. It's like, how many of the 105 bills have we even gotten through to even go to the next year? But just curious to know what that process might look like, or if it needs to go simultaneously, because I also wouldn't want it to be delayed. I don't know. Just maybe think through that process is some of my feedback. So, thank you.
Typically, as a point of information, we have dealt with anything that asks for funding as a funding request. So put it in finances committee, since it is so, you can't untangle it from the funding piece. But yeah, let me talk to Scott, Deputy Jones, and see if there's better ways to do that this year. That's a great point.
Okay, not seeing any other lights. Any other questions? No? Deputy Newey, thank you very much.
So much.
We'll get that done. Thank you. let's go to item 3.4. This is Iron County School District waiver request. This is a new request. And do we have Lance Hatch? He's online. And then Director Rasmussen, do you want to cue that up for us?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Ben Rasmussen, Director of Law and Professional Practices. Irons County School District is requesting a waiver from the, I believe, the 180 minimum school day requirements so that they can do a 4-day school week. And I think the superintendent there can speak to their reasons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Superintendent Hatch?
Would you like me to go ahead?
Yeah, you read
Okay,
that?
yes, thank you. Thank you for giving me a minute here, and I appreciate the board. Thank you for your service and everything that you do to support us out here as we're, working through trying to serve students. And as we have been laboring through trying to do what's best for our community, our school board decided to look into the 4-day week. And so we went through quite a process over the last 6 or 8 months to gather data, input from all the stakeholders, and look at the possibility of this 4-day week. In the document that I hope that you have in front of you, you can see the results of all the surveys and the comments that we collected and all the information. We do have 61% of our parents express a preference for a 4-day week. Possibly more importantly, 80% of the parents indicated that they would be very confident or somewhat confident that their family could successfully make a 4-day school week work. We had town halls, meetings with staff and the public, and the board now has asked me to put this forward to you to find out if the state would be supportive of us taking that step.
Thank you, Superintendent. I see the committee's continuing to review the proposal. I do have a few questions. How many students would this impact?
It would impact just over 10,000. We have over 13,000 students in our district, but many of those are online. And so it would be over, and those students actually it would still impact them. But the online students, of course, they can do their work at any time. So.
And what was the impetus? What triggered the desire to have your board consider this and bring it to the state board?
This all initiated from the board. They had conversations with school districts that have implemented the 4-day week. They feel like there's some value to the community, to families, and the board members that brought this forward really felt like our Fridays are already a half day, and if we could utilize our time more wisely and extend the days Monday through Thursday and not decrease in our instruction time, that might be better for everyone, especially when you consider athletics and all the things that families are trying to accomplish in this age.
And let me just ask these two last questions, and I see that Member Lear has her light on, so we'll go to her next. But two things really stood out to me when I reviewed your packet, and it looked like parental support came in around 62 to 66%. I can't remember the exact numbers, but that mid 60 level, which is high, but it's also one of the it's on the lower end of prior requests to move to the 4-day week, which usually clock in at over 70%, sometimes 80%. The group that didn't support this move, was there a certain rationale or reason that they were coalescing around in terms of, hey, we don't know if this is the best way forward? And you may not have that data, but even if it's anecdotal, was there something that was driving that lack of support from another 10, 15% of the population there?
Yeah, we do have substantial data on that, actually. We do know that the biggest concerns were students being unsupervised on Friday. Food insecurity was a major concern. So yeah, the supervision was associated with parents needing to work. We also had some teachers and educators who were opposed to the 4-day week for educational purposes, saying that it wouldn't be good for kids to miss that day, even if they're getting as much or more instruction as far as the number of hours in a school year. So those were some of really the top concerns that we heard.
And let's go to the teachers. When they were expressed thoughts or concerns about educational quality, perhaps, were they coming from a particular, was it the special education teachers? What was it, a segmented part of the teaching pool there, or was it across the board?
It was 25% of our teachers who completed the survey, and there was no consistency within who they were. There were some concerns from the special ed area of meeting educational minutes, but when they found out that the instructional hours would remain the same or even increase in some situations, then they didn't have that concern as much. But it was really just, about 75-ish% of the teachers wanted the 4-day, and the other percentage just did not. And the reasons they gave were that they felt like it wasn't good for kids.
Okay. I appreciate that candor. Just two final questions, and that one is the board vote, your local board vote, was that unanimous?
That was a little while ago. I'm trying to remember if it was. It was unanimous to send this request to you. So yes. I think we still have some that have some concerns, but that they want to work through. But they felt like if the state board is not going to support the request, then it's a moot point. So it was unanimous to submit the request to you.
And my last question, it goes to one of your slides. Are these slides numbered like the page? They are? Okay, let me just, I looked at the bottom.
You'll see like page of 115.
I don't see it. I'm going to go to the slide. And one, I want to thank you for this. We're getting an increasing number of schools and districts applying for the 4-day week, and I've never seen this question asked before. So I want to thank you for posing it. And it looks like it was posed to your teachers. And the question was, how do you believe a 4-day week would affect student learning outcomes? And if you have those slides in front of you, oh, mine says 21 of 15, but that's, I don't think it'll correspond to the superintendent's, but it says, how do you believe a 4-day week would affect student learning outcomes? 44% said it's going to improve learning, but the majority said it's not going to have a significant change and then combined with negatively impact learning. Superintendent, do you have any thoughts on how this 4-day week, should it be approved, would affect student learning outcomes?
I'm going to be completely forthcoming, and you're asking my opinion, not the board's, so I'm going to state my opinion. The 4-day week, I don't understand how you can say that it will improve learning. At best, if we do it right, we will be status quo. This is not an action that improves student learning. So I think the better answer is the no significant change, and that's if we implement really well.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the candor. And again, I understand you're speaking for yourself in that regard. I do have follow-up questions, but I see more lights on from the committee. And I didn't do this, but I would just ask that you identify yourself for the benefit of the superintendent when you ask your questions. Member Lear.
Sure. Thank you, Superintendent Hatch. It's Carol Lear speaking, as a one board member on this committee. But and I've seen a lot of these requests, and I want to lead with the fact that I very much support local control, and I very much respect you. I've heard really good things about Iron School District in the last few years, especially, and I start with that information and bias. But as I read through this, I am leaning toward not being in favor of this right now. Again, one board member. Let me just express some of my concerns. First of all, I counted the number of schools, or I listed the number of schools, and it's more than I can count quickly, maybe 15. And I haven't ever seen a request that involved that many schools. And Cedar City can't really claim to be completely rural anymore. Most of the requests have come from really remote schools or very small districts, those kinds of things. So I am concerned about the breadth of this right out of the gate. My first thought, and this is not particularly a linear kind of explanation, but was maybe they should try a pilot first with some of their more remote schools and see how it goes. So I was concerned about how many students right to begin with. I was also concerned that the special ed concerns that were raised in the report were some of my initial concerns. And some of primarily the teachers, but I also recall a parent saying, how would these students with disabilities get services they need? So that is another big concern. Kind of related to that, some schools who have asked for this request have had a really strong plan for their Friday. And that would involve transportation, it would involve school meals, but it would also support students who needed it. And I even noticed in your extensive materials that there was information about families that were concerned about what would we do for daycare, and noted that it's not available readily in the Cedar City area. And that was just, as I recall, Cedar City area, but probably it goes to all of Iron County. And so that's, again, a legitimate concern. Another concern is the explanation for Fridays. I'd love to see somebody make a request for this and have Wednesday be their non-school day. I would find it a little more less disingenuous, let me put it that way. And I'm not trying to be critical, but they interestingly they give all these great reasons, and then it's never Wednesday that's their day off. It's always Friday, which suggests to me, I mean, what teacher typically would not want to work 4 days for the same amount of money than 5? And same with some families, and I worry that is not an educationally sound plan. Just to have one less day of school. I'm concerned about younger children and children with disabilities not really benefiting from a longer day. So I kind of threw that in there. I also noted that one of the employees, there was a quote from one of the employees who say, yeah, we love it unless we lose pay. And then we're not so convinced it's a good idea. So I threw a lot of things at you in the interest of time. And I just saying that I cannot be supportive of this right now. I would prefer to see it be developed a little more narrowly maybe, and then presented to the board, because once we say yes, and the whole board has to say yes, but once that happens, then granted, we don't really have the resources to follow up with you on a regular basis to see, okay, are you doing this that we ask, and are you doing this? So we really turn it over to you, which is in a way appropriate, but also concerns me in receiving a request for a waiver. So those are some of my concerns. I know we'll have other time. Oh, I had one more thing. On these Fridays, it was a little sort of loose about what would we do on Fridays. And I did mention this, but I'd like to see a stronger plan for Fridays before. Oh, and that was also kind of a reason. We don't have good attendance on Fridays. Well, let's first look at maybe some activities or some things we could do on Fridays that would strengthen and really inspire attendance before we just say, let's make it another vacation day. So I'd like to see some of those efforts. So right now, this is too big, too much, and too early. And although I understand your board's desire to get ahead of this, so we're all in a catch-22. Is tell us more, give us more planning, and then we might be receptive, or at least speaking for myself. But you're also saying, why do we want to do that if we don't think the board will be receptive? So at least I would need to see more information and prefer a smaller number of schools involved for a little stronger reasons. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Can I respond to just a couple of those items?
Absolutely, Superintendent.
Okay, and these are all things that have been debated, but for the Fridays, the funding becomes problematic, and we would be seeking some grant funding. We would be looking at possibly diverting some funding to be able to provide some programs. But none of that has been figured out. You can't write a grant for a Friday that you don't have. So great point by the board member on that one. The other one is the pilot program. That was debated quite a bit. The idea of just taking one community or an area. But when you change the contract for teachers and you say now you're going to be working, instead of 188 days, you're going to be working 168 days or whatever. And you're all going to get paid the same. But this one school or these two schools are going to be working fewer days and getting the same pay. Or do you cut everybody's pay? And so those were some of the issues that really prevented us from being interested in a pilot.
Gotcha. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Longacre.
Yeah, thanks. I said this before. I love these waivers, and I've wished we would get more of these coming through. And I'm excited that you are one of the first to have a large percent of kids or students that this will affect. One thing I want to point out is we spend a lot of time talking about kids and testing and how this will affect their learning. We need to spend that same energy on how does this affect our teachers. And one thing that I want to point out in our annual report, around 40% of educators, this is from an educator engagement and exit survey, around 40% of educators feel that they have enough time to collaborate, or sorry, not enough time to collaborate. That's a lot. And I'm not sure what page this is on. I think it's on page 28 in your report. It says dozens of comments cited teacher exhaustion, stress, and lack of balance as ongoing problems. A 4-day week is viewed by many as an opportunity to recover, rejuvenate, and improve morale. And I guess this is a quote coming from a teacher. This profession is wonderfully exhausting. That's a great word. A 3-day weekend would help me heal, recharge. It would help teachers stay in the profession longer. I know in my schools, there are 2 teachers that I absolutely love who are leaving the profession because they are done. They are burnt out. This could potentially help. If we don't have educators, we don't have an education system. So I love this, and you've got a big support from me. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. Superintendent, thanks for being here with us today, and I appreciate all the work that's been put into this application for this waiver. A few questions that I have. One of the questions Member Lear already spoke to as I was reading through about the pilot, that was a suggestion, and that totally makes sense, your explanation, so thank you for that. My question is, or my first question is, it sounds like you've found a way to address teacher pay, where they can continue to earn the same amount of money for fewer days. How is this going to impact classified staff, bus drivers, nutrition service workers, and what does that look like in this moving forward?
Great question, and one that was debated quite a bit. We did look at especially our transportation and our kitchen staff. We felt like our paraprofessionals who work with students in the schools, because the hours will be the same. They just, they wouldn't come in on Friday, but they would work longer. They're all part-time, and they would work longer on the other days. So that's not really too big of an issue. With our kitchen staff, we have managers at every one of the schools, and they are full-time positions, and there is a lot of work and cleaning and ordering that needs to be done, and they would welcome the time on a Friday to do some of that, but the hours would be reduced somewhat for the part-time kitchen staff, or we would need to decide how we're going to pay for that. The reduction in meals, we'd be serving a lot fewer meals, 1 day a week worth of meals. So the funding that we get would be decreased there, so we would have to make that up somewhere else if we wanted to keep the employees whole, as far as that goes. With transportation, they were less concerned because of the way that they structure things with field trips, and in fact it would have kind of worked to some of their advantage, because a lot of the bus drivers who are taking field trips are missing their routes, and in some ways, not having to have substitutes for those routes on Fridays when they're taking a lot of trips is a benefit. So there were fewer concerns there.
Okay, thank you. If I may, Chair, a few more questions. Thank you. And then with administrators or district office staff, would they can continue to do the full, I don't know if it's like 242 days or 200, I don't know exactly the number of days. Is that still going to be a longer contract for the other employees at district offices and administrators at schools?
Yes, and if you look at the calendar, you'll see that for teachers, for example, the second Friday of every month would be dedicated to collaboration for everyone. So everyone's would be very involved in that. On Fridays, well, currently we have principal meetings, we have trainings, we have things that we need to pull principals out of the building for. And under this calendar, we would not ever really have to do that. We'd be able to handle all of those types of meetings and trainings on Fridays. And so their contract would remain the same number of days. We just wouldn't need to pull them out of their schools in order to accomplish things and meet with them. And so that felt like a great benefit that the principals were appreciative of.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to echo what Member Longacre said. I'm actually a big fan of this option, the local control. And it is very fascinating to me because we've had a lot of waivers come through for very small districts or impacting very small numbers of students. And this would be historical in the state of Utah to have this many students in one district. Look at this. However, I also trust local school districts and school boards to make decisions based off of what's best for their students. And I do agree with you when we talk about academic outcomes. I've researched this topic quite a bit myself, even as a elementary principal. I had a absentee rate of like 34% on Fridays, and that's hard for teachers to then catch up. And all the things you're talking about, extra time for professional development, being able to work with principals without having them pull out of their buildings, like this solves a lot of other problems. And if it can be a net neutral on academics, and research shows there are, I mean, in some instances across the country, there are sometimes small increases or small decreases in outcomes, but mostly it's net neutral. But if it can impact and improve our teaching practices, our collaboration, our administrators' leadership skills, those are all things that in the long run could positively impact student outcomes. So I do support this application for waiver, and I'll be curious to see, I'll be watching, because with lots of things coming down the road with some of the legislative changes, this may provide lots of options. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Member Longacre.
Yeah, thanks. One more point that I would like to make. If I had to pick one drawback from the 4-day school week, it would be that we are extending each day by 30 minutes. And I have found when I go into schools or I sub and it's 3:20 and school gets out at 3:40, I've got 20 minutes. Kids are done. So if this is approved, Superintendent Hatch, I would love you to come back after the school year and say how that additional 30 minutes of school, is it really productive, or are we just filling time? Because honestly, I would love to see 4 days and then the school day still stay the same. Are we really getting a ton of instruction out of that last 20 minutes? Or again, are we just, come on kids, just 20 more minutes, we have to fill a quota. So I'd love feedback on that.
Thank you, Member Longacre.
Thank
Hall.
you.
Superintendent, this is Rod Hall, one of the board members. I just wanted to say I'm excited to see how this moves forward. Just like Member Longacre said and Member Bollinger said, we've not seen this yet on this scale in any district. And when schools have come back, I don't know how many renewals of the waiver that we've had. It's just been positive feedback. And even where districts, maybe everybody in the district wasn't on board before, when they come back and they give a report, those numbers are just very encouraging to be able to see how it's impacted the community. So I know there's a lot of hesitation and people don't love change. So there's always going to be some pushback when it comes to that, but I would love to see how this is implemented and how it impacts that district as a whole. So hope we can move this forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Superintendent Hatch, this is Joe Carey. I just wanted to follow up on, let me just start by saying I really am grateful for the time that you and your team put together in the proposal. It is one of the most thorough proposals that we've received as a committee in terms of the amount of data and the type of questions that you were seeking answers to. And that's going to help us inform not only this decision, but decisions that we make moving forward. So thank you for that. You had mentioned food insecurity as one of the issues that came up while you were considering this proposal. Can you tell us, and I think I understand, but I just want to make sure that it's clear on the record, what was the concern about food insecurity and how does your plan or proposal address that? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the food insecurity comes from our 35% intergenerational poverty population. So these are families who, for more than one generation, rely upon government programs in order to meet their food needs. And we do have students. I was serving breakfast just a couple days ago in one of our schools, and the lunch ladies were telling me, about some of these kids who, one of them hadn't eaten since the Friday before, and this was a Monday morning. And it's heartbreaking to think that some of that exists, but it does. And so the food insecurity is a concern. We do have wonderful community partners. We have people in our community, such as the Rotary Club, the Lions Club. We have other philanthropists and groups that are already working hard to provide food and support for these families. We have food bags that go out on Fridays to students so that they can take it home for the weekend. Our plan would be to lean more heavily upon those services and coordinate with them and support them as they support us in addressing that need. We do believe that if this is approved, we will seek and find funding to be able to have some programs on Fridays, and those would include, they would be optional programs, but those would include food, and so those are some of the ideas and thoughts that have come forward. Almost, if you build it, they will come. If there's a need, our community finds a way.
Thank you, Superintendent. Member Lear, you have your light on.
Yes, I just have a couple of follow-up questions, and I want to be clear. I'm not an anti-change person. I may have been in education for a long time, but I really do support innovative ideas, and I don't want to ever say I'm just reflexively against change. I'm not. But I also feel like one of the things I didn't mention were if you have fewer children, students attending fewer days, and the cost is the same, that concerns me. If I were spending my own money for a program that said 4 days a week or 4 hours a day, it's, all full speed ahead, and then, but one day we're just going to let people recover, I would think, it's maybe not my money well spent. So I didn't see any cost analysis in this of if there would be any savings to the district. And I know you're talking about grants and partnerships, and those are great too. But I would like to see if you anticipate any savings, because students aren't having as much time with educators, and time is not, it's literally as much time, but they're in the days they're not. And I worry about the least of these, where students with two-parent families, strong families, not in your 35% of economic, they'll be just fine and they'll go on more vacations. But I worry about those students who need the attention of educators 5 days a week. So I'm concerned about cost savings, and if there will be any when students are not being able to access public facilities, or I'd like to see a stronger program for Friday, and that would include transportation, would include meals, would include some employees. That would make me feel better. But I just worry about the students who don't have the family support and the other things to do on Friday. And I thought that was interesting to note that a number of parents and employees said it's not just the little kids, it's the roving teenagers. And hey, I've been there, and that's not easy. I've had people say as a mom should work when your kids are little and stay home when they're teenagers. But I think that that's a concern for the community as well as for families. So I personally, I won't be voting for this today. I'd like to see more strength in this, and I still would prefer a smaller segment. But I also support you, and if this passes the board, I would hope that it works out really well, and then we'll see if everybody wants to work 4 days a week.
Thank you. As far as the cost savings, I failed to mention earlier that that was one of the initial reasons to look into it, one of the several reasons. But we did talk to other districts who have made this change, and we've tried really hard to do our homework, even outside of the state of Utah. And it just doesn't appear to pan out that way. Those who have implemented the 4-day week don't really see a dramatic change in their expenditures. So we hesitated to make that a reason or to even suggest that because of the experience of other districts.
Okay, I'm going to go to Vice Chair Bollinger and then to Member Longacre.
Thank you, Chair. One other question, as I was looking through the report here, a concern that came up from some teachers was the block day schedule. And if you're on a block day schedule with a 4-day week, it might be where could be 5 days between classes. Is there any discussion about potentially changing that schedule where they go to every class every day, or would the plan still be to stay with that block schedule?
The plan would be to stay with the block schedule. There's a lot of reasons for that, and it really does impact our concurrent enrollment and the ability of our students to take advantage of programs at Southwest Tech. So we would be continuing with that. However, the opinion that it's dramatically different than what we are already on a block schedule, and the sporting events and everything, we have done an analysis, and we don't really see that it's that much different than what we're doing right now. There are times when students will right now not have a class because they had a sporting event or something for a week, and that's the way it is because of the block schedule. So we didn't feel like the block schedule itself was, in fact, in some ways it makes it easier because you don't have that Friday to deal with. If you have every Monday is an A day, every Tuesday is a B day, every Wednesday is an A day, every Thursday is a B day, what do you do with that Friday? That has been one of our major issues, and that problem would go away because you don't have to rotate through A days and B days, so you don't have 2 B days in a row. So I guess my point is that has been looked at, and it's our determination that the benefits of the concurrent enrollment and the partnership with Southwest Tech outweigh the concern.
Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate the thoroughness.
Vice Chair Bollinger. Excuse me, Vice Chair
I don't
Member
mind playing,
Longacre.
Amanda. That's fine. Superintendent Hatch, I just have one last question, then I'm done. With your 4-day school week, we're not cutting out any curriculum. I mean, you're supposed to cover curriculum from beginning to end, and you need a certain amount of time. By cutting off 1 day, are we cutting out lessons or skipping things, or everything will still stay the same and everyone will get the same lesson?
Yes, that's the plan is that everyone would receive the same. In fact, right now we do plan to, if a teacher plans to do a lesson on a Friday and they're missing, a quarter of their class, and they realize that if I move forward with this new instruction, I'm going to be repeating that on Monday, they end up doing a lot of review on Friday, and it's also a shortened day. So for example, in our middle schools, their class periods, because it's a shortened day, are only 20 minutes. So you compound that with the absenteeism on Fridays. So I guess what I'm saying is that definitely the instruction, the lessons will all be there, and I think we're experiencing some of that right now, even though we do have school on Friday.
So for me, Monday through Thursday, teachers and students would actually be more intentional with their learning. So I love that. Thank you.
So let me just add my thought to this, which is I think Iron County, and I support the proposal, but I do so with a little bit of hesitation because I think it does represent a tipping point in many ways, not only because of the size of the district, but typically the LEAs that have come to this committee for a waiver, they've had a driving, compelling narrative as to why. And typically that was centered on travel time. The students were on the bus for 3 hours or 4 hours, or the narrative that, look, by reducing it by 1 day, the kids won't be on the bus an additional, I thought it was almost 40 hours a week they could save. Here, I'm not hearing that compelling driving force to say this is why we need to do this, but rather this makes sense to do. And I'm not going to second guess the local board. You did provide the data which shows that there is widespread support for the proposal. But as a committee, we have decided that when we grant a new proposal, we're going to request that you come back to this committee after implementation within 90 days to come back and report on the progress, the problems, issues that you may be having. Would that be acceptable, Superintendent Hatch?
Yes, absolutely. I would be happy to come back and report. Here's the problem. Part of the problem is that the community really did demand to know the schedule for next year earlier than May. Typically, they know that in November, and so our board, although they are interested in the 4-day week, they did approve a regular calendar for next year. So this, if you approve this, it would go into effect the following year, which would give us the time needed to figure out the Friday programs and some of the things that have been mentioned here today. So that's the plan from the board.
And that's fine. And we would just ask that 90 days after it goes into effect. So even if that's in the following calendar year. But we appreciate your cooperation. Not seeing any other lights, we're ready for a motion. You want to take it? You want to go? Okay. Vice Chair
We're
Ballinger.
fighting over who gets to make it because the three of us are kind of excited. So I guess I get that honor. So I would move that the committee approve Iron County School District's request for a waiver from R277-419-4 and forward to the board for approval.
Thank you. The motion before the committee is that the committee approve Iron County School District's request for a waiver from R277-419 and forward to the board for approval. All those in favor?
And I'd just like to explain my vote briefly
Please.
in one sentence. I'm going to vote no today, but I am really relieved that you reminded me it's not for another year, and the board will vote on this again. So I look forward to seeing some of the more some services provided for the students who need it most on Friday and what that structure might look like. So thank you for delaying this for a year and reminding us about the delay. Thank you.
We usually take the nays second, but we'll do that first. So we have one nay. All those in favor? Aye. And the one nay vote is Member Lear. Okay, Superintendent Hatch, again, thank you for your time and the thoroughness of the proposal.
Chair Carey.
Thank you so much. We appreciate you.
Yep.
Not about this. I'd like to move back to the other item that came before this for a minute that got skipped over.
Yeah, that's fine. We were going to hold 3.3 and 3.8 till the end, just because leadership was concerned we might not have enough time to go through the entire agenda.
And I think the timeliness of this is more important. I will not take long.
Yeah.
I don't expect a discussion, but I'd like
Please.
to have
Yeah.
an opportunity to have that.
So we're going to
discussion.
go to 3.3, Committee Report on Law and Licensing UPAC Meetings. Member Lear.
Thank you. I had written down some things in preparing an alternative report to what was provided by the chair, and I'll do this quickly. I don't expect a lot of discussion, but I did want to call attention to a few things. First of all, when I read the chair's report, I thought I had not been in the same meetings that he was in, and that kind of troubled me. I thought I was there for 9 hours. So I took the time to compare the recordings and review the transcripts and also read again many times the chair's report. And I was troubled for 3 different reasons that I'll just, not so troubled. What I'm saying is I'm offering an alternative report and compilation of those meetings because of 3 distinct reasons. Especially, at least 2 of us thought this would be a working group, and that was not. And I think that was unfortunate. And I think if we reflect on the 3rd meeting, where it was a more collaborative experience with other stakeholders, then that, I think, would have been an ideal experience for the whole 9 hours, not just for one 3-hour meeting. Also, I found that one of the reasons that I didn't find the initial report familiar was because, as I looked at it very carefully, there was very little in the chair's report about meeting number 3. It was mostly about the other 2 meetings. And so I made a very intentional decision to include all the meetings, all the information, and what came from those. Also, the alternative report does not draw legal conclusions that I feel were not supported by the record of the meeting that were drawn by the chair's report. So I thought that this was a report of what happened, what was said, not legal conclusions that then were drawn by the drafter of the report. I don't think there's any need for anybody to choose one report over the other. I wanted to call attention to a very different perspective of the 3 meetings and note that all stakeholders in education, as well as 2 of the members of the committee, have asked for more stakeholder input. And that was reflected by a number of the speakers in the 3rd meeting, and then others that I've spoken to. And they've requested more stakeholder input, more stakeholder discussion, more collaboration, so that this isn't just something that comes from either me or even a single group of people who don't have all the expertise that some of the other stakeholders do. So I would really encourage the public that's listening, our committee members, to read the 2nd alternative report, because I think both reports add some interesting information and would be helpful going forward. Thanks for indulging me and let me talk about that now.
No, thank you, Member Lear. I would just add that I think, and I know that the board members in this committee have reached out to several stakeholders. I know that our internal audit, the board's concerns, sufficient concerns to direct an audit of UPAC to ensure due process and fairness. It's my understanding that it's going to be very comprehensive, and they're going to be reaching out to several stakeholders. I know the legislature, not only are they concerned enough to prioritize an audit, which means that additional staff and additional resources. It's my understanding that they have, they're blazing a trail with their audit, talking to stakeholders all over the state. So I think that stakeholders are being spoken to, not only by us, but by others. We'll have an action item for next week on some UPAC reforms based on what we've learned, and we can have that discussion at that time. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Any other discussion to that matter? Not seeing any lights. Let's go to item 3.5. This is Canyons School District waiver request. This is a new request, and it's my understanding that we have the Director of Instructional Supports online from Canyons. Ben, Director, would you like to cue us up on this?
Sure. So this is a request for a waiver from R277700-5. Specifically, I believe the Canyons School District wants to do the digital literacy course in the 6th grade instead of 7th or 8th grade, which is when it's generally done. So the Canyons can speak to their motivations behind this request.
So, Ben, before we get there, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
The requirement that it be taught in the current grades, is that set by board rule or by state law?
700-5 is the board rule. I'd have to double check to see if that's attached to a law. I can do that as we're talking.
Thank you. It's my understanding, obviously, we can waive the requirement in rule. I just want to make sure that it's not directly outlined in state law where we wouldn't have that kind of flexibility. But while Director Rasmussen is looking up that research, why don't we go to...
There's no statutory reference in the rule.
So it is just controlled by board rule?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you, Director. So, Director, is it Roderick Landward?
That's correct.
Please, if you just want to share your thoughts with the committee.
Yes, and thank you for taking the time to review our consideration. We really appreciate all of your efforts to support all of the LEAs around the state. We are interested in switching the sequencing of these CTE courses at the middle level because with all of the support that our students need transitioning to middle school, particularly in relation to the growing need of support with technology integration, we feel that digital literacy upon entering middle school is the perfect transition from elementary to be able to get them off to the right start. It sets them up for success for future course taking in not just middle school, but then as they continue on into high school. Which brings us to the College and Career Awareness class and why we would like to offer that in the 8th grade instead of in the 7th grade or the 6th grade as we've been doing. We have the opportunity, as many of you are aware in our school district, we have recently started plans to move our Career and Technical Education Center to a new innovation center where we'll be able to expand our current CTE offerings for all of our high school students. That's led us to a lot of back mapping in terms of how we think about CTE, even in the middle school, and offering the CCA course in the 8th grade after students have had some foundational skills with digital literacy really gives us an opportunity to teach our students about the opportunities that they will have heading into 9th grade, which is when our high schools begin. Right now, as we teach CCA, we're teaching it to incoming 6th graders, and high school even seems like a long ways away, let alone career. And so moving that to 2 years later in their secondary experience gives them the immediate opportunity to start seeing themselves in those pathways and the opportunities that they may have at our Innovation Center as they move to high school.
Thank you, Director. I do have one question, not seeing any lights. And could you help me better understand the integration? If your request is granted and we allow the digital literacy for grades, to begin in the 6th grade, how does that correlate? Could you help me understand your vision with CTE alignment? And I'm reading from your submission, it says, by moving the instruction to the 6th grade level, moving this course allows for a more sophisticated progression of career and technical education skills throughout grades 7 through 12. Can you help me understand maybe your program in particular or your vision to help me understand that below? Thank you.
Absolutely. So by offering the course in sixth grade, we set those foundational skills up at the entry point in middle school. The CTE courses that we currently are able to offer as elective courses, most of them in the STEM-related fields, are not available to students until seventh and eighth grade. So if they can take digital literacy in the sixth grade, they then are able to, because that is a prerequisite, to take those CTE courses in seventh and eighth grade. Whereas if they are not able to take the digital citizenship course until later, they may not have the foundational skills to be successful in those other CTE elective courses in middle school.
If it's a prerequisite,
I was going to say, and digital literacy is a prerequisite to a lot of the pathways for CTE anyway, which is required.
that helps me understand the flow. Thank you. And I now see two lights. Let's go to Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for being here. Just one quick follow-up. You did a good job of explaining how digital literacy is often a prerequisite for other classes. You also mentioned that in eighth grade, students would take CCA. So in seventh grade, what does that look like for a student in seventh grade? What's happening between digital literacy and CCA? Is that the elective classes you're talking about, where then they can kind of explore some of the computer science or information technology? Can you just speak to what those options might look like?
Exactly. You're exactly on track. They're a little bit different for every single school because again, FTE plays into that. And so and I don't have all the courses memorized, I apologize, but it would be, I've got my secondary director here as well, the STEM intro, all of the facts courses, the STEM, what's it called? The STEM creative coding. Thank you. And the other technology courses that they would have access to. Not all of our 8 middle schools offer every single one of them, but each offers a wide enough array that they would have access to elective courses in 7th grade.
Thank you. And just if I may follow up, Chair, this is a unique situation because you guys have 6th grade within your middle school, 6th through 8th, where some other districts have 6th grade in elementary school. So I'm absolutely in support of this. I love how you've done some backward design to make sure that there's a K-12 alignment with the CTE, especially with that being such a big focus in our state. But just on the record, just want to mention that one of the reasons why I support this is because the 6th grade structure within the middle school versus it being in an elementary school. So I just want to put that on the record. So thank you.
Member
Thank you.
Longacre.
Does Carol have hers?
Yeah,
Were you in line?
That's all right. I don't care.
You were before me, go ahead.
Member Lear.
I need a little education here because as I was looking at this, admittedly late last night, I'm trying to understand the distinction between digital literacy and digital, let me find it again, digital skills, I think, digital skills course. Because as I'm reading, I think what may have inspired your thinking in the district is HB 218 from this last legislative session. And it talks about specifically digital skills course that an LEA offers in grade 7 or 8 in the statute. Now, is digital literacy different than a digital skills course?
My understanding from the recent legislation is that the what was outlined in the digital skills in that statute would be integrated into the required digital literacy course. But that is something USBE would have to address. Similarly, now the standards in digital literacy do cover some of the skills that were outlined in statute. And so that's why there was some of that discussion with the legislators during the session.
And I completely support what your district wants to do, knowing, again, I knew that you had 6th grade in your middle schools and probably 4th grade would be more appropriate for this course. But as I'm reading the code, the recent bill, it says standards for digital literacy course that an LEA offers in grade 7 or 8. And it doesn't seem to give any flexibility for that. And that the board would not be able to waive that if that is the meaning of that language in the bill. So I just want to make sure that we're not giving you false hope or taking on more authority than we have.
And I think this is a question that many LEAs who have sixth grade in the middle school, because again, we are not the only one. There are quite a number. And this is where it does get a little bit tricky when we, in statute and in board rule, say middle school, which of course we interpret as 6 through 8. And then there are specifications that say 7th and 8th grade. And so we'd love your help in navigating that more consistently, because again, we're not the only LEA that are in this situation.
I was just going
Right.
to ask that.
I know, I saw that too.
Point of order, if I may, Chair, just if that's okay. I was just going to say, I see the concern that Member Lear has, and that the course that I believe it was Representative Tusher that put that through, and that is a course that goes into effect for the 27-28 school year. And so to Director Roderick Lamward's point, that may be something that we may want to consider as a request for some adjustment in code that would then support this. But I think as my understanding, and Director Rasmussen could correct me if I'm wrong, was my understanding of the current code that's written, there is flexibility for this waiver, but moving forward, when the code goes into effect for that class, that might be something that we would have to reconsider.
Which seems a little bass-backwards to.
You said it, I didn't.
To say, we're going to move it forward because of the code, even though it should go back, and it will go back eventually.
In current code, do it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's wise or not. I just want to make sure that whether we like it or not, we do what it says in the code. And the other question I had related, sorry, you didn't call on me, but my light was still on. Sorry, Aaron. The concern I had was that somewhere it said this is a graduation requirement. Am I misspeaking or misreading? And do you typically let students fulfill graduation requirements in 6th grade?
That's been part of what has been required. Digital literacy originally was required in ninth grade. And then that was moved to the middle school level and is still a requirement for graduation.
And I actually think there's something in the law or board rule about allowing 7th and 8th graders to earn graduation credit, but I've never seen anything allowing 6th graders to do that, and that might be another one of the legal considerations that we review.
Well, and this is one of those tricky ones. It's not a credit that they earn towards graduation, but it is a required course.
It's a course.
to
That's
take.
a good, interesting question. So thanks. So that was my concern about it. I think I trust you. Canyons is very thoughtful and progressive, so I trust you. I just don't want to do this when it's convenient for the board and for school districts and then be stopped when someone in the Administrative Rules Committee doesn't like it for a different reason.
Sure. And certainly this isn't because of convenience. It's, as I mentioned before, we've really tried to be strategic and back mapping and creating opportunities for our students that are in a clear scope and sequence during their secondary experience. And as I mentioned earlier, we'd love your support and guidance in how we can continue to work with the legislature to better define middle school for those LEAs, which again, there are many who have 6th grade in the middle school.
Thank you, Director Rasmussen.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that given the language that Board Member Lears pointed out in the bill, it may behoove the committee to approve this for just 1 year. Normally we approve the waivers for longer, but that might be something that the committee chooses to do given the pending change to the code, and then we can review it after a year to see if anything's changed.
Director Rasmussen, Member Lear also mentioned the graduation requirement kicking in the 7th and 8th grade. The fact that this is required for graduation but now may be administered in the 6th grade, is that something we need to consider or look at, or can we look at, if this committee does approve it and move it forward, can we have more guidance from staff on that before we vote and meet as a board?
Yeah, we can follow up on that. I think what she's explained is accurate, but
Is
we can follow
acceptable.
up. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Member Longacre.
Okay, no, you're fine. Carol, is it okay if I talk now? Just want permission first. No, I support this, the switch of CCA going to 8th and digital literacy going to 6th. I had a daughter who took CCA as a 6th grader and thought, man, that would be a great 8th grade class, and digital literacy is really fun. They take apart a computer. I think 6th graders would love that. So I just want to, have on record that I support this decision, or this waiver. I'm sorry.
Not seeing any other lights, we are ready for a motion. Member Hall?
Sure, I'll make it. Do I need to add in the 1 year? Just for clarification, the 1 year is just to cover us, because it's going to really mess Canyons up to approve this for 1 year and then it not go through the next year, because you're going to have. Do you see what I'm saying?
Due to the no, it does, and I think your consideration is warranted. Just in light of statutory changes, I think this best protects the district as well as the board to incorporate the 1 year provision.
So will Canyons have to come back again and get another waiver?
Possibly. I don't think it's definitive in the law, but
If there were a legislative change, if I may, I think then you could grant a longer waiver at that time. But given what this bill apparently says,
Could we do that now, though? Like, just approve the waiver for a year, but if they don't need to come back?
it's highly speculative.
yeah,
Okay,
I
just
think
tell me what I need to do. That's fine.
I think the best course of it, the best standards, I think, would dictate that we do it for 1 year.
Okay. All right, are you ready?
Yes.
I make the motion that the committee approve Canyon School District's request for a waiver from R277-700-5 for the 2026-2027 school year and forward to the board for approval.
That's the motion before the committee, that the committee approve Canyon School District's request for a waiver from R277-700-5 for the 2026-27 school year and forward to the board for approval. Because we've changed the initial proposed motion, I want to give Canyons the opportunity to comment or share thoughts on the motion with the 1 year requirement. Do you have any thoughts on that, or?
I would love to, just again, for the sake of the sequencing in which we get organized for our year. We're already behind in terms of getting things organized for the year, bringing forth this at this time. So if we could approve it for longer than a year, pending any changes to the legislature, and then if there are not any changes, we reconsider versus having to come back, that would be ideal.
Ben, do you have language that could incorporate that request? Well, one, I'm going to ask if it would be appropriate for us to include that language, and if it is, if you could amend.
I feel like if there needs to be a change or a extension of this, it can be in writing. It doesn't have to be something that comes back to the committee with all the folderol that involves in coming to the committee. I don't think it's a huge imposition for Canyons to have to say, okay, now we'd like this forever. If that either the legislation changes or we learn that there's a different reading of it that would allow for this. I think we're making too much of coming back to this committee.
Chair,
myself.
with other waivers, we don't go past 3 years, so this would be kind of a deviation from the typical policy. The language I've put there extends it through the 28-29 school year if there are legislative changes, which would be 3 years.
So I'll go to the maker of the motion, Member Longacre. Does this capture what you're looking to do? And the motion before the committee is that the committee approve Canyon School District's request for a waiver from R277 700-5 for the 26-27 school year, which may be extended through the 2028-2029 school year upon legislative changes, and forward to the board for approval. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Ms. Roderick Landward, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's go to item 3.6, and we would invite, is it Director Gillette? If you want to come up to the table, that would be fantastic. This is item 3.6, Tooele County School District waiver request. This is a renewal. And Director Rasmussen, would you like to anything to cue us up on?
Yeah, so this is renewal of the 4-day school week for some of the most rural schools in Tooele. You've got Dugway, K-12, Vernon, UPPAC, Anna Smith, and then Wendover High School. And this is one that the committee has approved in the past.
Thank you. So, Director Gillette, do you have any additional information you would like us to add? Do you just want to jump right in and ask you questions? Maybe you can start with just letting us know how it's working out with the waiver.
Okay, and I can take questions, but this is, I can't remember if it's our second waiver or third waiver. So we have been doing this since, as mentioned, like 2018. I feel that it's working well for our district as far as we have Dugway with the military base who their employees are off on Friday. And then the other direction, West Wendover also does a 4-day week. So where Wendover is split in the middle, being consistent with that. And then we have students from UPPAC, which is an hour from Wendover even, that do travel on the bus to Wendover High School. So that's Wendover High School is 7th through 12th grade. So we do have them traveling, but we do have an UPPAC elementary. I just think our main reasons are the military base, and then in Wendover, there any amenities as far as doctors, dentists, any of that kind of stuff is over 100 miles away, whichever direction you look at. So that's when those families are able to come into Tooele and, you know, do clothing shopping, get any of their medical appointments situated and things. So also in Vernon and in UPPAC, those are ranching communities. So having Fridays off helps them too. So, and I'll just take any questions, but those are our main things.
Member Lear.
Thank you. I admitted I did not read this again because I think I've read it about 6 times, but I did have 2 questions, especially in light of the discussion we had earlier with Iron School District. And this is the kind of waiver I 150% support because of the problem with putting children on a bus for so long and the needs of the community. So I'm not supportive, but I'm curious about 2 things. One, does Tooele had any buyer's remorse or concerns about how this has proceeded in the last 10 years-ish?
No.
That's great.
I will mention in the survey, so we had like 95% of our employees in support, and listening to when Superintendent Hatch was speaking, a couple of things that came to mind. You know, I've looked at research and things and looked at our scores. Not sure it's, you know, with the exception, Wendover High scores are coming in and they're doing well this year, but I wouldn't say honestly that it's necessarily due to the 4-day week. It's the focus. And that was one thing that came up too a little bit of the teachers really need to be intentionally focused on the curriculum and use their time wisely. And so that's, and making sure that they're continuing to have PLCs so that they are planning and everything is well planned. We have after school programs and things too in the schools. And so no regrets. Parents, it was like 88%, I believe, supported. One thing that did come up when we had our public meetings, not necessarily concerns, but something I think we can do better at as we've been doing this is just standardize those bell schedules. So we have like one school that maybe gets out at 3:12, one that gets out at 3:10, 3:15. I think just that standardization of the bell schedule. So that was one thing that like two parents mentioned of just, making sure that's standardized.
It's a minor problem, really.
Yeah, yeah.
And my second question is, what do you do on Fridays? Are your buildings open? Do you provide any services?
So in our valley and in the outlying schools, we do have like weekend meal kits that we will send home. Our sports for the high schools are on Fridays. The buildings aren't necessarily open, like as far as elementary or anything. They do offer some after-school clubs to kind of help with that. So there's STEM clubs, literacy clubs, and things. In the so the military's off on Friday, so they wouldn't, travel. But like Iba Pond Vernon, they're doing, they're ranching things. And then in Wendover, a lot of those people also, they're limited with daycare. So having like some of the secondary students home to help watch the younger kids, because we do have a lot of our parents that are employees in Wendover too that work at the casinos on Friday. So
Thank
that's,
you. That's just helpful to know what
Yes,
other districts are
absolutely.
doing. Thank you.
Yep.
Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And just following up similar to some questions that we asked, so the Iron County, their Friday schedules were a little bit different as far as administrators. Are your administrators working on Fridays still? Do they use that time? Do you use that time for, district meeting piece, or is it different because you have a mix of different schools on different schedules?
We have, so our employees, including administrators, we're all the same contract. So it would still be, we've arranged things so like our PD and things, that's different days of the week, not necessarily Friday. But some of our outlying areas, these schools, they may have their teacher work day on a Friday here and there, but it's not every Friday. And they're not, like, the administrators are working, but it may not necessarily be out in Wendover. They are coming to the district office and meeting with some of those people during those times. It's about a little over 100 miles, I believe. 104, I think.
Director Gillette, just a few questions. You'd mentioned the military base was a reason, and I don't understand how. Just because I'm not familiar with the geography there. Could you explain why that's a factor in the application?
So in Dugway now, there aren't a lot of the employees that live on base. I mean, there's still some, but the majority of them are commuting either from Tooele or Salt Lake. So they are commuting, bringing their students, and they have Fridays off. So.
Okay. And by having school, that would necessitate this additional trip.
Yeah.
Thank
Yep.
you. And Member Longacre, during the I won't call it an inquisition, but during the questioning for Iron County, we talked about like that additional 20 or 30 minutes of just fatigue. It's been a long day and now we're extending it. And even if you don't have any formal research, maybe even anecdotal, are we seeing the best teaching being done at the end of the day in that 20 and 30-minute period? Or are the students at a point of just that mental, and maybe not even the students, but the educators, right? As a board, our meetings used to go 11, 12 at night. And even though you're here and you're working, it may not be representative of your best work. What are you seeing? What is the feedback that you're receiving on that additional end of day time that's been extended in terms of efficacy?
Sure. Great question. So I am out in those schools quite often, and I do see them like they know that they have that shorter time to get everything in by only being 4 days. And I do see them focused on that and kids engaged. So we, our Valley schools start at 9, well, 8:59. So they actually start earlier. So they start at 8 versus going longer, because our Valley schools get out later, like at 3:30. So I think maybe it's that, maybe it's starting earlier and you have them fresh, but I honestly am not seeing, I don't see that fatigue. I haven't.
No, thank you. I don't see any other lights, so we are ready for a motion. Member Hall?
It pulls up here. Okay, I make the motion that the committee approve Tooele County School District's request for a waiver renewal from R277-419-4 and forward to the board for approval.
Thank you, Member Hall. The motion before the committee is that the committee approve Tooele County School District's request for a waiver renewal from R277-419-4 and forward to the board for approval. All those in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. Director, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's go to item 3.7, City Academy Waiver Request. This is a new request and is Director Stock. He is online, and then Director Rasmussen. Would you like to cue us up for that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So my understanding here is that the State Charter School Board has approved City Academy for an expansion. That's the current expansion is approved to be opened the fall of 2026. They're requesting a waiver so that they can take an extra year and open in the fall of 2027.
So if I understand, they're not looking to, which is typical, like to expedite their opening. They're looking to delay their opening. Is that correct?
Slow play.
Okay. That's, might be a first. We'll find out. So we have Executive Director Stock for City Academy. And Director Stock, would you like to share anything with the committee about your proposal?
Yes. So when we got the approval to open the elementary here, we were partnering with the Gifted Music School and had talked with them and got some approval. Then during that kind of process, as we started gearing there, they had a change in executive director over there, as well as their board, and they had some policy changes and some things that people weren't aware of. And so we spent a lot of time actually over the summer trying to get that back on board and going. And so we didn't get some of the marketing and things done that we had planned on to work with them. And so part of this has been a collaboration. This is a music school that's going to integrate music into the school in an effective manner. And so they were important. They were an important part of our elementary open up, and so we had to have them on board. But so as a result, we did still think that we were going to get a heavier response just from the current group that we had, and we were not seeing that, we're not getting that, so we really just didn't have the student enrollment to be able to open. And so we really needed the extra time to do some of this marketing. We've really been setting and having meetings, getting with some of the organizations and groups that really would want this kind of a thing. And so we've been gearing up better to do that, but just really we don't have the student population that would justify opening this fall.
Thank you, Director. I see a light, Member Lear.
Thank you. I had just a few questions. When I started reading this, I was really excited that this would be a music emphasis school. I thought that's just a great idea. I really appreciate that in a couple of other charter schools. Salt Lake Performing Arts Academy had a similar emphasis. But I'm not sure this is a question for you, and I'm not sure who to ask it to, but I'm wondering how much state money, again, looking at public funds as if they were my own, how much public money is paid to a school that's gearing up to opening? Does somebody know the answer to that? I'm looking, seeing.
We'd probably need Deputy Superintendent Jones for that.
That is an important issue to me, because a school without students, kind of like a Friday without students, concerns me. And I think that 1 year is very prudent and allows the school to become ready and attract its employees and things like that. But I'm concerned about 2 years. And my second is more of a comment again, and if you have a response, Mr. Stock, that's fine too. But Salt Lake District, which I'm very familiar with, I live there, I drive past those charters in Salt Lake all the time, but I'm very familiar with Salt Lake, and it's losing enrollment, probably faster than any other district in the state. It's just not. Salt Lake's an expensive place to raise families these days. And I know that charters draw from other areas, but it concerns me that in 1 year, there's just been and I read the numbers, don't remember them exactly, but it seems like it was maybe with a concerted effort to attract students in this first year, you've attracted maybe 45 more, 45 more students. And knowing that the enrollment is decreasing in that area, I'm wondering if 1 more year is going to make a difference. I know you're talking about marketing and maybe marketing differently, but I'm just concerned that the population base is not there. And I don't know that another year will help. Realistically, have you had discussions about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and part of this is exactly this. One of the reasons we were looking at this is we have recognized exactly what you said, because charter schools can pull from around the area. I actually opened a Real Salt Lake Academy and founded that, and we found that we would pull kids from all over the valley. In fact, Harriman, where we were located, was not our biggest pool, and it was because we were offering something that students would travel. Parents wanted them to come to, and things like that we actually got that kind of thing. So there's this recognition that we cannot provide a program that really interests people in this area, that's what happened. The other impetus on really wanting to do this is to save this school really down here, as you just talked about. And we'll be putting this school in our current building and using our current administrators and everything like that. So really all we're looking at is, we're not looking at additional costs here a lot, just to hire teachers. And in elementary, you can do that based really upon the numbers a little better than you can at a high school and a junior high. And so really this whole project was to do a couple of these things, is to build some infrastructure that would pull kids and actually make it where we have a feeding and a reliable source to really bring in and keep this school down here, rather than just seeing another school closed down here in this area. We're trying to put some efforts together to really actually to save this school and to put it in and to really make that move forward. So that's why the concerted effort. I really do think that that they are well enough known. The Gifted Music School is well enough known in the music community and does already pull kids from all around the state and all around the areas that we can bring that in and be able to do that, and not only be able then to make this a more reliable school, but also to keep the school down here as well, because we serve some populations that are not making it in the local schools. Like, they really come to us because they are being unsuccessful in the schools they at, and they thrive here and they do much better, and we're able to give them the education and really get them through graduation that the majority of the kids that are coming to us are not. And so we're just trying to build this base that is there, that will pull a little different kids, will pull them from around the community, so we can actually save one of the schools here in this downtown area rather than see it close.
2 quick follow-ups.
Okay.
First of all, let me just repeat, I'd like to know the cost of keeping the school open for another year without students. Secondly, then it sounds like you've worked out the bugs with the problems you had with the music school. So they're going to
Yes.
still partner with you under a different management or something like that?
Yes. And maybe I can even answer your question a little bit on funding. We received a $150,000 grant, but we had 2 years to do that. So we've only had one so far. So we had the 2 years to spend it. So regardless of whether we did that in the first year or the second would, we are not receiving any other funds from the state. That's the only open funds that we'd have. So the cost of the state would be nothing here. Different by going the second year. All those other costs were given us, and we had 2 years to be able to spend that on the grant that was allotted.
That's super helpful to know. That makes a big difference to me. And finally, and this is maybe a charter, I don't know if Member Hall would know this, or, but at what point does a charter approval expire? If you try this year, you tried last year, now you try this year, and you don't get enough to open, does that just keep going until you, and I appreciate you're not spending state money.
They told us at the charter board that we had 3 years.
Oh, okay, so if this doesn't work, you still possibly would have another year if you wanted to keep trying.
But I think that if it doesn't work by this next year, you are right on the fact it will never work. And we would probably have to look at just removing that and paying back the $150,000 to the state.
But it was a grant, you said, I thought you said it was a state.
It was a grant, yes. But it was a grant from the charter school board to the state. It would have to come
I'm
back.
not sure you have to pay it back, but, okay, appreciate those answers, thank you.
Don't tell Aaron. I just, we have the executive director for the state charter school board. She does have information that I think would provide answers to what Member Lear had asked. But Director Rasmussen, one, I want to make sure as a committee, we have the leeway to have her address the committee.
That's within your discretion, yes. I think
Okay.
that's fine.
And then if there's no objection from the committee members, then Member Lear, do you want to restate your question about the finances?
I think he actually answered it. He has they have a grant for 2 years from the state charter board. He said it took place last year and it will continue this year. The only question that maybe you can answer is, and thank you, by the way, for being here and being willing to step in, is would the school be required to repay that grant if it never opens? Because it's still state money, and that does, I want people to try and have some opportunity, but I also, if that were my own money, I'd be concerned, so.
Great, yes. Stacy Hutchings, Executive Director of the State Charter School Board. Fantastic question. I love that question. It's super helpful to make sure that we're using the state funding appropriately, and if things like this happen. And as the State Charter School Board grants waivers, these are questions that we need to keep in mind, so thank you for asking that. I am not familiar with this particular grant. So we would need to look into that. What I was going to comment on is that the state does have a dedicated funding stream for startup funding for schools. That with the startup funding, the state charter school board can allocate that to new schools, new charter schools, but also has the ability to offer this funding to expansions and satellites.
So
And
is there more, so you're saying there's more than the $150,000 grant that's coming to the school, or?
No, what I'm saying is the state allocates a certain amount of funding for giving schools that are new to startup or expanding to startup.
That's where it comes from.
And yes, and so in granting, it doesn't sound like this startup funding was allocated to City Academy, but this is something that is commonly appropriated for the purposes of starting schools or expanding schools. And what I want to thank you for is bringing that up, so that as we're granting these waivers, it's important for the state charter school board to ask that question exactly, that if they've been given these startup funds as part of a new school or an expansion that they might be delaying, that we make sure that that funding is part of that consideration.
And would they be expected to pay it back
I would imagine so.
if the school never opens?
Yes, we would definitely need to follow up to make sure that the funding goes for what was committed to, and if not, paid back.
Thank you for your assistance.
Thank you.
Stacey, I also just want to thank you. You know, in the time that I've been on the board, I think the only time we've seen the executive director for the state charter school board here is when they've had a matter pending before the committee. This may be the first time that I can remember that we've had someone in this position attend just to observe and watch. So I thank you on behalf of myself and the committee for that. Thank you. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll second that, Executive Director Hutchings. We really do appreciate that and look forward to continued good relationships. So thank you. I just wanted to make a comment back to Director Stock, and just I appreciate you being willing to look at waiting to open. So we are using our dollars in a fiscally responsible way. It's expensive to run schools, and we want to make sure that when we're doing that, we do have the student population that supports that, not just in a way that it starts it up, but also something that we can maintain as well, because it is our taxpayer dollars that we're working on. So I just wanted to extend my gratitude for being fiscally responsible. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Director Stock, I do have one question. This is Joe Carey. And that was, you said that, you know, in your experience, you would have students that maybe weren't, the word you used, I think, was thriving at the school that they were attending, but they come to you and then they begin to thrive. When you use that, the thriving, are you talking academically, or are you talking about those maybe just mentally or emotionally, perhaps all the above? But could you help me better understand when you said that this experience that you provide helps them to thrive, what you meant by that?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you actually for asking. It's actually both, and that's part of why. So when they come here, we are a smaller school, and we are able to really to give these students a lot of one-on-one attention. And so a lot of the times the reason they are, it has to do a lot to do with their emotional well-being and how they're doing at these schools. A lot of times they're getting lost. They're not getting the attention they need to be successful. And so when they come here, we really pay attention. We know our kids and we know how they do. And sometimes just that is really a lot of what happens there. In addition, we can focus when we see their academics, we can focus a little bit better on them and be able to help and support them. And so we have typically had better growth with these kids. They do come this low, so I'm not going to say our proficiencies have always been super high there, but our growth rates have always been really good, usually above the state averages, and especially above for these kids who really are struggling and have a hard time with that. So.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. I also want to just comment, you know, when we have an executive director who's a lawyer or an accountant, we can predict what's going to be on the walls of their office. It's usually their law degree or their CPA degree. But when we talk to people from the arts field, it's usually very different. And I've been trying to figure out those items on your wall, but I haven't been successful. So I just want to thank you for that challenge while you've been sharing with us.
Well, I didn't know I was doing that, but you're welcome.
We're ready for a motion on this matter if there's no other questions. Vice Chair Bollinger?
Thank you, Chair. I'd be happy to make the motion. I would like to make a motion that the committee approve City Academy's request for a waiver from R277-552-6 paren 9 and forward to the board for approval.
The motion before the committee is that the committee approve City Academy's request for a waiver from R277-552-6 paren 9 and forward to the board for approval. All those in favor? Wait, I apologize. I see Member Lear has her light on.
I'd like to amend that because it seemed to come up in our discussion but wasn't reflected in the motion. I would like to amend that to say for 1 year so that we don't seem to be approving this indefinitely. For approval, I don't know where you'd want to put it, Ben.
I'm just trying to decide if I need to do a motion to amend or if that's acceptable.
I think Member Lear had her light on. I just didn't look over before I called for the vote. So let's make that part of the original motion so we don't, is that okay?
The maker
Vice
of the
Chair?
motion agrees. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'm giving you time because I rushed the motion. So Vice Chair Bollinger, does the language reflect your understanding? And please.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to make a motion that the committee approve City Academy's request for a waiver from R277-552-6 paren 9 for 1 year and forward to the board for approval.
Thank you. Not seeing any lights. The motion before the committee is that the committee approve City Academy's request for a waiver from R277-5526 paren 9 for 1 year and forward to the board for approval. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Director Stock, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, this is a little untimely. This is feeling really disjointed for me, and I think it's just... but I wanted to still say, I would like to know if there's any other state money going to this school other than the grant that Director Stock mentioned. Ben, can you follow up with Scott Jones and see, and so that for when this comes to the board, we'll know what kind of public money is going
You're just talking implementation.
Yes, like
because they're already an operational school at the 7-12 level, right? So there could be all kinds of money going to the school.
Yes,
so
that's
you're
a
just
good
looking
point.
for.
Yes, we are already
still
operating.
Yo. Yes, so any additional money that's going for this, for planning purposes for this year, so we'll know that for the board when this comes back to the board.
Okay, yeah, I'll
Yes,
follow up
thank
with
you
Deputy
for reminding me
Superintendent
that
Jones.
they have a secondary school also. Thanks.
And I will say that if there is, I haven't seen it come through my budget, so.
Could be, and you could be completely right.
And that would be nice. Then I might, know I have some money. Thanks.
Director Stock, thank you. Yeah, and let's take a 10-minute break. Thank you. I had requested motions be prepared, the new version of 322 as well as a UPPAC motion. Staff advised that just given the work that they had in preparing to meet the deadlines for the legislative requests, if they could be postponed, so that new version of 322 was not prepared. So I would just recommend that we carry this to the June meeting. I have been assured by staff that this would be a priority and we would get that version done so we can get it to the committee. So my motion for the committee is that we would just hold, that this matter be listed for the June 2026 Law and Licensing Committee. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate the heads up on this and letting us know. I know this is something that we've had on our agendas on and off since, or on, actually not off, just on since like last October. So it's been a long, long time. And so I just wanted to say, I know that there's a lot of work that's been put into this. I think the hard part for me is that every time it's on our agenda, I spend a lot of time reading through, thinking, and those types of things. And then every time we extend it, I just want to make sure I'm using my time wisely. So I'm just going to put out there that if it's not quite ready by the next month, I would ask us to maybe consider just tabling it until it is ready, just because of the amount of, and it's even me working with my constituents continuously of their concerns of the most current draft, and just something for us to consider as a committee. I want to do my best work and be able to represent my constituents, but I also don't want to stall the work that's been put into this. So just want to put that on the record.
That is absolutely a fair request. And again, it was a balancing act between do you ask staff to work even longer and harder. I just thought this was best to inconvenience the five of us rather than upend their end, but it's a legitimate observation and concern, so thank you. Member Lear.
To that same point, I have talked to several times. I've talked to USBA, I've talked to USEA, I now recently talked to UHSAA, all of which are acronyms for, and several teacher groups, and they are all eager to participate in the changes to this, and are, depending on the group, are concerned what those might look like for their different kinds of employees. So I hope we have it early enough to be able to consult with them and not be feeling like we're rushed the last 2 days before the board meeting to try to see what stakeholders believe about this. Because I firmly believe, and I said this to you, Chair Carey, this is not something that we can force on these employees and these employee representatives. If we don't have cooperation and collaboration and voluntary approval of this, it's going to be unsuccessful, no matter what the words on the page are. So I hope we have enough time to work with these groups.
Thank you. Not seeing any other lights, the motion before the committee is that the committee continue this item to the June Law and Licensing Committee meeting. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 3.9, R277-605, Coaching Standards and Athletic Clinics. This comes to the committee by amendment and continuation. Director Rasmussen, do you want to cue us up for that?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this rule is up for its 5-year review. If I understand there may be some concern about the amendments, so we do ask that the committee take action at the very least to continue this rule, because it will lapse in July if we don't take action. So this needs to be continued at the June board meeting. Staff has proposed one amendment on lines 27 through 28. This is basically just to implement or highlight a statute that's going to go into effect on August 1st that basically requires moratoriums for extracurricular programs during the summer months and also during holiday periods. Staff can speak to that if there's any questions on that. Terry Davis is here for that. But happy to answer any questions you have about this rule. Otherwise, just looking primarily, though, to get this continued for another 5 years.
Member Lear.
Ben, I think I had a hard time finding that statute. I think it might be a miss.
The problem is it doesn't take effect until August 1st.
So it's only in the Representative Hall's bill? Is that what
Right,
you're
you'd
saying?
have to look at the bill to see what the coming language is. I think they actually show they show two versions of the statute now. They show the one that will lapse and the one that will be effective August 1st.
And I, late at night, but I couldn't find either one of them. I thought maybe it was a misprint. I think also, and again, I have some mixed feelings about what should happen to this rule, but I don't think the wording is really accurate in saying an LEA shall comply with the moratoriums established, because in fact, the moratoriums, then I'm not sure if it should be moratoria either, but that being an aside, they're really not established by by the LEA. They're established by UHSAA, and then the LEA has to come back and in fact individual schools. So I think the wording of that needs to be a little clearer, so that if the public and others read this, they understand that it's a in concert kind of a thing. It's not.
I think you could easily change established to recognized, and that would probably address that concern.
And maybe, but I think it's a little more complicated than that, because there are different sports that have different moratoriums, and different schools have different moratoriums, even within an LEA. So and that information just barely came out from UHSAA. So I just think we need to make sure we get that language right in that area.
The code section in question has just a few specific times when LEAs and UHSAA have to do moratoriums, and I think it's for all sports. Terry can correct me if I'm wrong, but so this was meant to be just incorporating that provision, but we can take more time on the amendment if it's something that you have concern on.
I just do, because here's just to illustrate my concern. Here's the page that spells out the moratoriums for various kinds of sports, and I know we might be able to generalize, but I don't want individuals to think, oh, the LEA set this, when in fact it was a school or even a individual sport in a school. So I think we need to make sure we get it as close to exact as we can. And the detail of it was staggering to me when I heard it at the first of the week. I didn't realize that they could be so variable. So I think maybe I don't particularly want to change just a word right now to fix it, but I would like that to be a consideration. And I think people have comments, but spoiler alert, I'm going to move to spend another month refining this. Continuation, I hear you, and I'd certainly be willing to continue, but I think we need to refine it.
Thank you, Member Lear. Director Rasmussen, I just have some questions. If we could go to lines 45 through 53. The way I read this, it says that, coaches, assistants, and advisors shall act in a manner consistent with and may not. And then A is, so the coach can't use, foul, abusive, or profane language. But then you go to B, and it appears to change. So where A says, as I read it, coaches can't use foul, abusive, or profane language, B pivots and says now coaches can't permit hazing, demeaning, or assaultive behavior. Would there be any reason why we couldn't in B say engage in or permit hazing, demeaning, or assaultive behavior?
I don't see a problem with that.
Okay. Then I'd just like to make a motion, and that would be on line 49 to insert the words engage in. It should say engage in or, and then it would flow into engage in or permit hazing, demeaning. And then on line 50, currently that text reads, including behavior involving physical violence, restraint, I would like it to read including language or immediately preceding behavior. Member Leader.
Just have a question related to your amendment, proposed amendment. Line 45 says coaches, assistants, advisors. So those would be, as I read it, paid, unpaid, part-time, extensive volunteers who might work with children a lot, some that maybe don't. They run the lines, different things like that. I'm wondering if the rest of it I don't take issue with at all, but language, is that something you really want to control? It doesn't say during contract time or during the time they engage with students or anything. It would be every minute of their day, whether they're paid or not paid, volunteer or not volunteer. Is that something we want to try to regulate? Is that what you're intending?
I think that's already done in 47A, right? Using your argument, we're already preventing them from using foul, abusive, or profane language.
While engaged in school-related activities.
Member Lear, would it help to add at the end of line 46, may not while engaged in school activities?
I mean, that seemed, but it's Member Carey Chair Carey who made the motion, so I don't know if that's what he intended. That suits me better. I don't like over-regulation. I, of course, don't approve of profane, abusive, or foul language, but I also think people are self-actualized, and I don't want to I don't expect we could control every minute of their day at home at their activities. So that suits me better, but I don't know if that's what Chair Carey had in mind.
Yeah, Director Rasmussen, I think that's a good change if we want to add that limiting language to 46.
And Ben, I had some questions. Oh, sorry. I'll ask him later.
Okay, so the motion before the committee is that the committee insert engage in or at the beginning of line 49, and that the committee insert language or before behavior on line 50, that the committee add at the end of line 46 while in the course of school activities. Any discussion on the motion? Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. Maybe just a question, because the language that's currently in 47, it says while engaged in school-related activities. So while in the course of school activities, does that have the same meaning? Is it the language that you have in this motion, it says while in the course of school-related activities, is that different than while engaged in school activities, or is it the same? Well, no, I'm just saying, well, yes and no. I mean, if we are...
Maybe we need to add that to just be in the, or we could strike it from A and add.
Right. Yeah, if we just move that, instead of just adding the language, striking it from 47, but using the same language. Instead of it's saying while in the course of school activities, have it say while engaged in school-related activities. But yeah, just move it up to line 46.
To this, to this amendment again, if I can. Looking at the statute that's cited, 53G-8-209, includes many more things than are listed in A and B. And it seems to me that we should either include everything that it's in 209 and repeat it for emphasis, or we should just cite the statute, because it includes such things as e-cigarettes, tobacco, controlled substance or drug paraphernalia, excuse me. There were a couple more things. I said that. So what is your professional judgment, Ben, about including everything or just citing 209?
I think that's the committee's preference. I mean, I think you're right that what's been emphasized. I think that's up to the committee's preference. I think that what you're saying is correct. What's been spelled out in the rule is in the statute, so it's kind of duplicative. But it's just kind of up to we don't really need to repeat in rule what's already in code.
And I just would like it to be consistent, either everything that's in 209 or just cite 209. So you're making the motion. What's your druthers?
I mean, historically, we've merged those 2 points. I'm okay with the way that it's written, but if you'd like to make a motion to amend, I mean, that's your prerogative.
I guess I could ask the maker of the motion a question. What do you think it adds to just select those things? And do you not want to include tobacco, e-cigarettes, those things also during school-related activities?
I think that, historically as a board, we've outlined things just to draw attention to, hey, it's important that you go and check out the code so they have a general sense or idea of the issues raised in the code. But I am familiar with the argument that we shouldn't just recite in its entirety what's in code, and that sounds like what's being suggested. I think this does give guidance to an LEA who comes to the rule and is concerned, and they're like, oh, there's enough here to let me look up the code to find out exactly what it says.
So you like it the way it is?
Yeah, I'm happy with my amendment, but if you would like to amend, you're certainly have that prerogative.
I think I'd like to add other elements of the code that are important to me. So do you want me to do that now or wait till we vote on this amendment?
Not knowing what those are, I think we vote on the amendment and then you can amend, or you can make a motion to amend the amendment.
Let's do that.
Okay.
So we can save ourselves a vote. I'd like to add after the last, let's see, after B, it would be, so on line 54. Well, let me make a non-substantive amendment on line 45. Shall act consistent with, and you can take in a manner of out, in a manner out. That's just simple. But then on a new parentheses C, let's add use, or let's see, what's the best verb? Illicitly use, possess, or distribute. Do you get that, Ben? Just the starting right there. Well, because you can't, because some controlled substances are, it's appropriate for them to use. So it would seem to say illicitly use, possess, or distribute. And then underneath that, a controlled substance or drug paraphernalia. And then underneath that, another letter, a tobacco product, an electronic cigarette product, or a nicotine product.
Okay, slow down. Controlled substance or
Drug paraphernalia. Yeah, it's the language. I think I'd like to get those things, the demonstration of coaches of those things are equally important to me. So it's all what would be in 209 paren 2 down to 2 little I. Pardon me? No, that's what's already in there. It's already in the law, or in this rule. But the oh, yes, and I wanted the AB, the tobacco products, and then an alcoholic beverage. Substance or drug paraphernalia, tobacco product, and alcoholic beverage. Yes, and then it defines what those things are in a different section of the code. You can add that if you want. I think that for purposes of the rule, it's probably all right, with or without it. So yes, that would be my proposed amendment to the amendment. No, it's not. And if you are OCD like this, you can rearrange it in the same order of the code, Ben, by the time it comes back to us.
Technical change.
we're altering the language of the code with member Terry.
Yes, we are.
The motion before the committee at this time is the motion being made by member Lear, which I am treating as a friendly amendment, but that is to add line 54, paren C, use controlled substance or drug paraphernalia, paren double I, a tobacco product, where code will be inserted, paren 3, an alcoholic beverage. All those in favor?
Oh, wait, I want to make sure we still have that language in there. During school-sponsored activities, or however that was worded. It applies to all of that.
It's at the
Goes
top.
up higher. Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry, Vice Chair Bollinger.
Yeah, thank you. I was just curious to know if the maker of the motion might be open to changing this so this goes in line, instead of going at line 54, where it would, to have it go in line 49. So it would be the B, and then it would push B down to C, so it's in the same order as code.
Sure, I'm fine wherever it is.
Thank you for indulging my OCD.
Ben, did you get that? Okay, and no objection? Okay. All those in favor of the motion as it was just read? Aye. That passes unanimously. Let's go back to the main motion, which is that the committee insert engage in or at the beginning of line 49, insert language or before behavior on line 50, add at the end of line 46 while engaged in school-related activities, and strike the language from line 47 and 48. Add after line 49, B, use, possess, or distribute, paren I, a controlled substance or drug paraphernalia, paren II, a tobacco product from code, paren III, an alcoholic beverage. All those in favor? Vice Chair Bollinger?
One more minor. Did we get that in the manner of taken out on line 45, Ben? Or are you just going to do that? Yes, as long as you're okay with that. Thank you. That's all.
I just had a question. So on part 2 of this, where we insert language or before behavior, so I think that this was kind of a point, because we're quoting code, does it cause any issues or problems to add additional language into that?
I mean, this is in addition to code, because it says shall act in a manner consistent with section 53G 8209 and may not. So in theory, the way this rule is written, we're calling this out in addition to code, even though it basically is very similar now to code. So I don't think there's any issue the way the rule is written to tweak it a little bit.
Okay, thank you. And Chair, if I may, because you were the original maker of the motion, I'm just trying to understand the purpose of adding that in. Because the way that I read it, by adding that in, so we don't want them to include or like talk then about physical violence, restraint, improper touching, inappropriate exposure, body put. Is that your intent?
It is.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And do you see that that's needed? Do you not feel like that's covered in that first part under foul, abusive, or profane language?
I think you could make the argument that it may be, but just for purposes of clarity, especially given what has come across our, UPPAC calendar, I think the additional emphasis is appropriate.
Thank you for that clarification.
Any other discussion to the motion? Yeah, exactly. I'm learning like Matt, like just make sure. Not seeing any lights. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And then I do have two other questions. Line, I think it's above this. It talks about promiscuous sexual. Line 44. And maybe this is best directed towards staff. It says a coach or other designated school leader shall be an exemplary role model and may not use alcoholic beverages, tobacco, controlled substance, participate in promiscuous sexual relationships while on school-sponsored activities. When I read that, I read it in a way that says, well, if the sexual relationship isn't promiscuous, that would be permitted. So why are we saying
If you're in a
only?
hotel room with your wife, you can do what you please. If you're in a hotel room with your mistress, perhaps you should reconsider.
Okay. So now, thank you for that clear explanation. Now I understand why we use the word promiscuous. So thank you for that clarification. That makes sense. The other line is, I believe, 57. No. It was the word remuneration. Can you search by 58? Thank you. So it says, school personnel may not require students to attend out-of-school camps, clinics, or workshops for which the personnel, activity leaders, coaches, or advisors receive remuneration from a source other than the school or district in which they are employed. I just have two questions on this. Why are we being very specific about when this remuneration prohibition kicks in? On line 57, we're saying we can't require them to attend out-of-school camps, clinics, or workshops. But why not just say activities? Why are we being very specific regarding what a coach may or may not be remunerated for? Why not just say, look, if there's an activity, coach can't receive remuneration?
I think it's tied to the fact, and Terry, you can jump in if I'm off track here, but I think it's tied to the fact that a football coach might be tempted to make his players come to a private camp in order to make the school team. So that's what this is trying to make clear, is that students aren't required to attend private activities that the coach may sponsor in order to participate in the school sponsored activity. So that's why it's talking about remuneration from other sources, is because there's a lot of camps and activities of that nature that are intended to enrich the coach outside of their school activities.
No,
in
and
addition to.
And I appreciate that, and I think that's a great rule. I'm just saying, are we being overly limiting? Instead of just limiting this to attendance at out-of-school camps, clinics, or workshops, why not just say any activity where the coach or advisor is being remunerated?
I don't think that. Terry, do you have a comment? Introduce yourself.
This is Terry Davis from PE specialist for the Utah State Board of Education. I think it's really great to spell this out, because if you said activities, I think it would leave it a little ambiguous. And then we have a lot of variety of people who are coaching. And so someone coming in, say a first year coach, for them to read something like activities, they would probably not understand that those types of things fall into that category.
No, that makes sense. What if we were to change that to read, with that understanding, on line 57, may not require students to attend out-of-school camps, clinics, workshops, or activities. I just don't want someone to say, well, I just sent them to a class. And, class isn't listed as an out-of-school camp, clinic, or workshop. I can now be remunerated for that. That's what I'm trying to address, but I understand what you're saying, which is when you cover everything, you may not cover anything, right? So if there's no prohibition, if code doesn't say, hey, we only have to limit it to these three things, my preference would be to rearrange that, but I want to defer to staff. And
I don't think there's any issue if you wanted to add the word activities there.
I think adding the word activities is a great idea.
Okay. Well, on that note, let's adjourn. That may be the only time. That That may be the only time So let's do on line 57. I'd like to do an amendment so that it reads, out-of-school camps, comma, clinics, comma, workshops, comma, or activities.
Can we put it before workshops so we don't have to move the or?
Yes, sir. Unless Board Member Bollinger wants to put them in alphabetical order, then then we can do that.
What line was that on again?
57. So, just for clarity's sake, this provision would read, school personnel, activity leaders, coaches, advisors, and other personnel may not require students to attend out-of-school camps, clinics, activities, or workshops for which the personnel, activity leaders, coaches, or advisors receive remuneration from a source other than the school or district in which they are employed. So the motion before the committee is that the committee add activities before or workshops on line 57. Any discussion to that motion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And then I just have one other question. And this dealt with, this goes to the board priority of internal controls and oversight. So on line 74, the existing rule says each LEA shall maintain verification of its coaches' compliance with this section, which is primarily on CPR and other child sexual abuse prevention and other safety protocols. How do we, as a board, make sure that we're getting compliance with the provisions of this rule? Are we monitoring it? Are we doing risk assessment on it? Please.
Terry Davis, Physical Education Specialist for the Utah State Board of Education. So what is required from UHSAA is that the coaches must complete their certification, and included in all of the certification is CPR, and then the LEAs will input that into an online online program. So they put in the qualifications of the coach in Register My Coach, and then that is monitored through UHSAA has access to be able to see the qualifications of all the coaches.
Okay, and that's for that particular section. But let me expand that to the rule now. So we have a board rule that says, educators can't use, profanity in the classroom. And I had someone reach out where the teacher not only used profanity, but directed it at the students in the class, allegedly. Here, we're saying the same thing. They can't use foul, abusive, or profane language. How do we monitor to see, is that happening? How are we addressing it if it does happen? Specialist Davis. And if you don't know, that's fine.
I can add.
I'm trying to go out of my way now as these rules come before this body to ask these questions about assessment and internal controls and monitoring, because otherwise, I think we pass these rules, and if they're abided by, great. If they're not, that's okay too. And I don't think that's fair to the students or
If I may. So if they're licensed individuals, the coaches, we can certainly bring them through UPPAC for violations of the rule and the standards. If they're non-licensed individuals, it would fall on the LEA to enforce this in their discipline with their own staff. We don't have monitoring of that or really any authority to take action against the non-licensed staff. Terry, did you have something to add?
But even if it's not action, just if we know, are violations of the rule pervasive? Are they sporadic? Are we doing any kind of monitoring to know what's happening with this rule in the field? Understanding that as a body, we currently don't have jurisdiction over non-licensed individuals. That may change, but currently we don't. But we still have this rule over individuals who may not be licensed. What, if anything, are we doing to make sure that the LEAs are enforcing this rule and that we're tracking it?
So a couple of things. UHSAA monitors all the infractions during the competitions and the games. So we have those statistics that they're collecting. LEAs also have their athletic directors that should be monitoring that. Also with the UHSAA, I've done some trainings to remind them about this board rule and to remind, I've gone through UIAAA to remind the athletic directors that are a part of UIAAA, which is the Utah Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association. So we've done trainings there, and they've trained the athletic directors that come to their trainings. But as far as the granular of how are we monitoring what is happening at practices, it's difficult for USBE to be able to monitor all the coaches of all the activities and all the things that are going on without the athletic directors and without the LEA's help in being able to monitor that.
No, and I apologize. This may be on me. I'm not saying we should be doing it. That's the LEA. But are we collecting that data that's being gathered? Are we looking at it?
At USBE, we collect the data if it goes to UPPAC. But if it doesn't come to USBE, then we don't really monitor or have data on that.
Can I add something too when you're
Yeah,
ready?
please. So when you say if it comes to UPPAC, so are you tracking, like if a coach or athletic director comes through UPPAC, do you have access to that data?
Staff would have to put that together from UPPAC records. We aren't actively tracking that for coaches.
That was my understanding. Okay, I'm just trying to get a better sense, so thank you. Member Lear?
Yeah, I wanted to add a couple of things to Terry's commentary, and that is that, and interestingly, we were just talking about this, spending about an hour talking about it at the UHSAA meeting. Not only is there Register My Coach, which requires trainings, some of the trainings are required every year from all coaches. These are licensed, non-licensed, volunteered, paid, and I can't exactly remember the number he gave me. It was something like 3,000 different coaches that are working with public schools. And they're all required to do these trainings if they're listed as a coach by an LEA or by a school. So there is tracking through UHSAA. There's not a connection right here in this rule, but I know that happens. There's also another training protocol that's called NFHS Learn that they also participate in by sport, by topic, And those are either, it was a little unclear if they were assigned by different LEAs or schools, or if they were volunteer. They're all free if they were voluntarily taken by coaches. But that's the additional additional information and different additional training that's offered right through UHSAA. Another sort of tangential, but it was interesting to me. And this, by the way, those trainings don't just involve the things that are listed here, sexual abuse prevention, concussion training, bullying, hazing. It's also fundamentals of coaching, sportsmanship, a whole variety of other things that are offered through these various categories of training. Also, the UHSAA does to help, what UHSAA does to help with these similar issues is, especially the ones that are more overt, the things like appropriate language, that there are ejections for that, which are, according to our discussion just earlier in the week, are increasingly vigilant, not letting players or coaches use abusive language, and in fact, increasing their vigilance about the ejections. They pointed out that UHSA is very vigilant about sportsmanship, and they had recently 49 ejections in all the, hope I'm getting this right, spring sports, and 40 of them were for language and gestures, which is their characterization of it. So I think it's not connected in this rule, but I know that we're having another education partner take this very seriously, and I don't know if someday somehow we can have a more have a closer connection electronically or whatever, but there are other entities that are monitoring this also and have frequent penalties. They talked about the fines that are issued in addition to the ejections, both for coaches and athletes, for at least especially the language and gestures aspect of it.
Member Lear, thank you for that. And I know that you are the board's representative on that body, so thank you for that update. Member Lear, you still have your light on.
I don't mean to.
Okay. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. If we can go to lines 42, please. As I was just kind of reading back through the rule, we've added in a section on alcoholic beverages, tobacco, controlled substance. Like this piece we've added into the area below. So I'm hoping that we can maybe combine the two of them. But the one piece of this that I'm not sure we added into our, is the, did we have the participate in promiscuous sexual relationships? I'm curious to know if we need to, whether it's better to combine those or to just take out that part so it's not redundant. I just don't want us to have to list them twice.
I think we could just strike the language that's highlighted there.
Okay, that would be my motion, is to strike the part that's highlighted, the Ben's copying. We could have that streamline way.
What line was that on?
It was on line 43. Yes, so my motion would be to strike use alcoholic beverages, tobacco, controlled substances, or from line 43.
So the motion before the committee is that the committee strike use alcoholic beverages, tobacco, or tobacco-controlled substances, or from line 43. Any discussion to that? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. That passes unanimously. Let me ask the well, let me ask Director Rasmussen. So, Member Lear, I said I was going to ask Director Rasmussen, I'm going to ask Carol. So, Member Lear, you indicated you might want to send this back to staff for an additional month and allow the continuance to move forward. How do you wish to proceed?
Thank you for asking. I didn't think we could or would, but I think we've got it we've addressed most of the issues I had when I was reading this. I think I'm fine about proceeding and passing the rule and also continuing the rule. And if things come up, I'm not crazy about promiscuous sexual relationships, which I think is 1950s language, because I don't know that I care if some partners with a coach and doing whatever they want to do privately. So I think that's a little, I don't know that it should be in a rule, but I am fine about changing this as we've changed it and moving on. That was a long answer. And passing it as it is. And I'll actually contact UHSAA in the next couple weeks and see if they have any reservations about the changes.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Chair Bollinger.
Thank you, Chair. Just another follow-up question, if I may direct to Member Lear. Were you okay then with the language on line 27 with the moratoriums established? And if this is something you want to address later, then that's fine too.
I'm not quite sure in the moment how to phrase it. And I'm probably being hyper cautious in that there are a number of entities that can set their moratoriums. And to put it all on the LEA, but then ultimately the LEA is responsible for what the schools do and what the employees do, so maybe that is okay language. So I think it's okay for now. If I hear that, I'll talk to the UHSA people. If they have a better way to say that, I'll bring that to the board discussion.
Okay. Not seeing any other lights. We're ready for a motion.
You're good at
I volunteer as tribute. All right, I'd like to make a motion that the committee continue and approve R277-605, Coaching Standards and Athletic Clinics, Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the committee is that the committee continue and approve R277-605, Coaching Standards and Athletic Clinics, Draft 1 as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Okay, home stretch. Let's go to 310, R277-317, Incentives for National Board Certification. This comes before the committee by amendment and continuation. Director Rasmussen.
Thank you, Chair. This rule is also up for its 5-year review, so we need to take some action on it. This is a program that the legislature has discontinued funding on. My understanding is we have about a year of funding left for this program, and so basically what staff is recommending is that we add the sunset date that you see on lines 95 and 96 to remind us to bring this back and repeal it in a year. But otherwise, we would continue the regulations for so long as we have the funds.
And Dr. Haidt, are you, oh no, it's Specialist Horsley. Are you here on this, or is Dr.
She's
Haidt?
on Zoom.
Oh. Well,
Yes,
Dr. Haidt.
yes, I am here.
Oh, is there anything you would like to add to Director Rasmussen's introduction?
No, he said it all.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Yes.
Dr. Haidt, while member leader is looking, did you have any indication why the legislature, were they not pleased with the results of the program? Was it strictly budgetary? Do you have any insights into why the funding for this program, which by all accounts and feedback, seems to have been well received and producing good results, why the legislature wouldn't continue the funding?
Thank you, Chair. Malia Hyde, Executive Coordinator of Educator Licensing. There was not a lot of discussion, I think, in this year. Anything related to budget, I think, could be certainly attributed to some of those concerns that were pervasive throughout the state. But otherwise, no, we do not have any indication of why.
And how many educators were participating in this incentive program?
We have currently just over 300 educators that are nationally board certified in the state of Utah and have additional educators who are in the process of obtaining it. But I think that number is much less. Erica maybe would have that number, but I think it's like 40 or 50.
Specialist.
Are you Erica Horsley, Program Specialist, National Board? Are you asking how many additional teachers are seeking certification? Is that the question?
Yes.
Yes, it's about 40 to 50 additional.
Okay. Thank you. Member
Chair.
Lear. Oh, Director Rasmussen.
Something I heard Member Lear saying to herself reminded me, we should have a motion to strike line 17 through 19 as we don't need the oversight category any further.
Unfortunately.
Okay.
Yes, that was one of my motions.
Was that on 60? Was that on one we passed or the one?
317.
Oh, 317. Okay.
So that was I had one other motion.
Please, Member Lear.
But maybe are we? Sorry, I'm suddenly having a brain cramp. So we're not continually funding this, but we're going to finish out. Is that the point, Erica? Now, okay. So you're not going to be giving out any more? Are you not? I should ask that Are you giving out still additional stipends for this?
Do you mean the bonus? Is that what you mean?
Yes, or whatever it is.
We will. No, not after this year. So the bonus itself will finish this year. The prepayment program part of it, where we assist educators with the fees for earning and renewing national board certification, will continue. Well, actually, it's just the new ones will continue until the funds are gone into next year. But the bonus will be paid this year, and then that's done. That part is done.
But there's only be one more year of any additional payments, right?
Yes, any assistance with the national board fees for those who are seeking the certification for one more year.
And if the legislative appropriation should return, which I think is unlikely, but maybe, I guess we could revisit this. Because I don't think a lot of amendments are necessary if we've only got one more. I did have a couple more, but I'm going to leave those alone and see what happens to the program, if that's okay. Yeah. So yes, just the one that Ben mentioned. Thank you.
Okay, so we do have a motion before the committee, and that motion is that the committee strike lines 17 and 19 through 19. Line 17 through 19. Any discussion on that motion? Not seeing any lights. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We are now ready. Vice Chair Bollinger.
And I'm happy to also make a motion, but just before we get to that point, I just wanted to mention a couple things about national board certification. I do know that Representative Arthur actually did an RFA to try to increase these bonuses. I think it was, I don't remember the exact amount, but I think it was close to around 7,000 or something like that, to try to increase, because other states do give a larger bonus. But I also am aware that with the master grant, and that's one of the grants that we prioritized as a board to increase teacher leader pay, a lot of districts are continuing to support national board through that master grant. So there is another source, and there's also a lot of districts, I know districts in my area that I cover, also provide a stipend for those that have national board certification. So they get an additional stipend in their salary for that. So those that are national board, I know it is an ongoing debate because they want to be, a lot of them are working towards this to earn some extra money, but also to improve their practice. So just wanted to put that on the record. And with that, I will make a motion that the committee continue and approve R277-317, Incentives for National Board Certification, Draft 1, as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on second and final reading.
Okay, the motion before the committee is that the committee continue and approve R277-317, Incentives for National Board Certification, Draft 1, as amended on first reading and forward to the board for continuation and approval on the second and final reading. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. The final matter before the committee is item 311, R277-328, Equal Opportunity in Education, comes before the committee by continuation. And Director Rasmussen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. This is just up for its 5-year review. There are no amendments proposed. Happy to attempt to answer any questions you have on this rule.
Member Lear.
I think there might be a statute that's wrong in this, and I do not think we need to jump into the ideas or the thoughts about changing this right now. I think it should be continued and maybe discussed in a calmer moment. But I thought on the statute that's referenced as 53G-2-103, that seemed like a strange reference, Ben, and I'm trying to find out where it is in the rule. Line 13. No, that's 523. Maybe it was at the end.
You're a national board.
Oh, duh. No wonder I can't find it. Just give me one more second here, and I hope I can.
I think if you look at the code, the code section it's referencing, this was a bill that came up about the use of certain considerations in hiring decisions. So I think in an equal opportunity rule, it would probably make sense that that's included in there. What line were you looking at?
It's on line 131 at the very end. Notified reported violations. State board job. I couldn't see the requirement to report to the Education Interim Committee in that statute. So if you want to just
subsection 7.
Check my thinking that came from
Subsection 7 on there. If you see, if the state board identifies reported violation, state board shall provide an update to the Education Interim Committee.
Great, thank you. Helpful. That's all the questions I had.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to make a motion.
I just have a few questions, and I think the first one, maybe we can just treat it as a simple fix, but on lines 52 and 53, it appears to be the same line written twice. Maybe we did that for emphasis. But if we, without objection...
Okay, so we want to strike line 52 or 53?
Either one, your choice. And then, but it also, my next question is more substantive, and it deals with this entire section, R277-328-3, prohibited discriminatory practices. And we outline in this section, professional learning has to include these elements. And, we talk about recognizing constitutionally protected rights of all students, developing strategies to promote the examination of various viewpoints on a topic in an impartial and politically neutral manner. And my question is going to be the same that I asked regarding the earlier rule, which is, how are we as a board, what steps, what oversight, internal controls do we have in place to monitor and assess whether this development of strategies to promote the examination of various viewpoints on a topic in an impartial and totally neutral and a politically neutral manner is taking place? Is there anyone that could address how we're monitoring that? Is that better geared towards our internal audit? Because I know prohibited discriminatory practices is a priority for the board. I think on 114 we prioritized reporting of that. I know audit tracks that. So this may be just invite CAE Davis to our board meeting when we have this matter come before the board. But I'd really like to know, what are we doing in terms of monitoring risk and compliance with this rule?
August board meeting. I was just going to say, I didn't work on this rule. I think Elise was just planning that this would be a quick 5-year review. We do have time, I think, if we wanted to bump this out a month. If you have questions about this rule and the monitoring on it, that maybe we could continue it out. We weren't prepared for extensive discussion. But we do have, I think we can continue this one in August board meeting. So if you wanted to take additional time, we could. But beyond that, I haven't specifically asked anybody about the monitoring on this rule that I'd be able to. I don't think we have anybody here that would be able to answer those questions right now.
No, I don't want to hold it in committee. I can follow up with Deputy Newey in the interim and have those questions addressed. Any other discussion to this item, Vice Chair Bollinger?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, just from my perspective professionally, so this part specifically talks to the fact that the professional learning shall include instruction in developing strategies to promote the examination of various viewpoints. So I do know, as districts, at least from my experience, as districts are developing professional development, they pull this rule up and say, are we covering all of these points? So that's just as far as the oversight piece and how are we tracking that. I don't know if that is part of our assurances that yes, we're following all the rules.
Right.
So I can't answer that part, but I just wanted you to understand from a perspective of what I've seen LEAs doing in their professional learning.
And I appreciate that. And I'm not suggesting it's not being done. I just want to know if we're doing our job. Like, as a state board, are we exercising oversight? Are we looking at this? Are we helping? Are we getting questions? Are we providing feedback? But thank you. So with that, not seeing any other lights, I think we're ready for a motion.
I'm ready.
Member
if you
Lear?
want me to. I move that the committee, I move that the committee continue R277-328, Equal Opportunity in Education, on first reading and forward to the board for continuation on second and final reading.
Thank you. The motion before the committee is that the committee continue R277-328, Equal Opportunity in Education, on first reading and forward to the board for continuation on second and final reading. Not seeing any lights. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. We have one more motion. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. That passes unanimously. Thank you.